Because there's just no words. There's no way he can explain it, but this is what he says. And he's trying to say, here's God. The king is dead, but God's in charge of things. He's over all things. He's over all the kings, including the Assyrians who were on their way. He's the one on the throne. Our king is dead, but God is still there. He's still governing. He's still controlling. He's still leading. Justice or mercy, it's in his hands. It wasn't in Uzziah's hands. Not going to be in the Assyrians' hands. It's in God's hands. Blessing or curses are in God's hands. God is the one still around. He's still here. He's still on the throne. He's so big the temple can't contain him. That's kind of what he's trying to express. He fills the temple. He encompasses everything. He's still ruling. Others may lose hope. Others may be in a panic mode because everything's going the wrong way. Not Isaiah. Though he might be mourning his king. You know, he knew the king. He might have been best friends with the king. He knew him. And he might mourn. But he's not losing heart. He hasn't fallen into, oh no, what are we going to do now? Because the king's gone. Because God is on the throne. There is still a king, and his eyes are on us, and there's a bigger picture. God is doing something. And that's important for us. No matter where we are, no matter what's going on with the loss of your job, or your kids are going crazy, or you can't pay the mortgage. These are tough times. A lot of people can't do that. The fact of what Isaiah is saying is God is still in charge. God's still on the throne. Things may really, really stink, but God's still God. God's still taking care of things. And when you turn your eyes to Jesus, when Isaiah turned his eyes to God, didn't focus on the stuff that's happening, but focus on God, clarity happens. You see things as they really are. You see what's really going on. See, Isaiah saw what was really going on. He saw, he knew the Assyrians were there. He knew they were burying Uzziah. But he knew that God was there. And that puts everything else into perspective. You can turn to him. You can plead to him. You can look for what he's working on in the midst of whatever's going on. A clear understanding of our lives and our work, what we're supposed to do and say and feel, can only come when we take our eyes off of ourselves, off of our circumstances, and put our eyes on God. When we turn our situations around and look to him, the rest of it gets much clearer. It gets much better. Maybe you don't buy this religious stuff. You know, maybe, I don't know you, so maybe it's the first time you walked into a church and you go, you know, I guess there's a God, I guess Jesus was okay, but I'm not sure I buy this. You know, it's a fairy tale, right? It's just a story in a book. What does it matter? Well, I can say that just give God a chance. If this is true, if there's something to putting God as your focus, does it hurt to try it? Give that a shot. So Isaiah sees God. He sees him in the temple, and he sees these things called seraphs. Now, your Bible may say seraphim. Slightly different word in the Hebrew. This is the only place it's used. And it's kind of interesting that Isaiah uses it because the word means burning one. So he sees these angels that are like bright. They might be on fire. I don't know exactly what burning ones mean, but they're the burning ones. The burning ones are around the throne. And so they're, bright, they're on fire or whatever, but they've got these two wings covering their face and two wings covering their feet. Kind of means that they can't look at the brilliance of God either. They've got to cover their face. Do you remember when God passed by Moses and he had to hide Moses' face because he couldn't look on God? Here are angels doing the same thing, covering their face. Because as brilliant as they might be, they don't compare to what God is. And then the covering of their feet is kind of a humility thing. Like, we're not worthy to stand in his presence either. And we're created beings to be in God's presence, but we're not worthy. So he sees these angels there worshiping God. This whole thing is a big vision of holiness. The holiness, the magnitude, the greatness of God. And holy is an interesting word. I had to look this up because it's very expansive. Let me just read it to you straight out. Holy means that God is distinct from the common and the profane. He is sacred. He is free from moral imperfections and frailties. He can be counted on. God is trustworthy, pure, clean, whole, and complete. Not just that he is distinct from the common and the profane, but he is in active opposition to them. All of that is encompassed in this word holy. He's just beyond anything we are or could imagine. He's great. He's mighty. He is morally perfect. But because he's so clean, so pure, so holy, It's not just in character, but also in deed. That character of holiness means all his actions are holy. And one of his holy actions is that he is in direct opposition to the profane, to the evil, to the wickedness. He's not, when we sin, when we do wrong, when the world's going to hell in a handbasket kind of thing, he's not sitting back just watching it. I'm holy, so I'm over here and you're over there doing all the wrong. He's in opposition to it. He is finding a way to fight through the evil to draw us to himself. And that's a beautiful thing about God. He doesn't wait for us to do the right thing, but because he's holy, he draws us to that holiness. There's something about holiness that inspires us, that we find desirable, even though we find it a little bit scary, that draws us. God is reaching out. That's what this vision of holiness means. The connotation here is that he's not just perfect and good in all that he is, but also in all that he does. It goes beyond his character into all of his deeds. He's in control. He's going to act. Isaiah is confident in that. This God is going to act on our behalf. And his actions, whatever they are going to be perfect. They're going to be the best thing. They're going to be the most loving, gracious thing that could happen. The angels say that he fills the earth. This goes beyond the temple. Of course, his train fills a temple. The angels' words say the whole earth is full of his glory. It's like you cannot escape him. He is everywhere then. He's everywhere now. We can't get away from him. We can meet in a nice little building like this and say God is here. And that's true. But when you walk out and get in your car, God's there too. When you go to work at the cafeteria or the mall or the factory, God's there too. He doesn't leave us. He fills the earth. Nothing escapes him. His glory can be seen everywhere. And his grace and his mercy flows continually. He wants to make himself known. He wants us to know who he is. He wants us to be friends with him and have knowledge of him and be able to serve him. He's not standing off, but he's come near to us and fills us, fills everywhere we are. When he's confronted with this God, it's just like we talked about Moses had to hide his face. But remember when the tabernacle was finished and the priests were going to serve and they couldn't stand because the glory of God filled the tabernacle and everyone was held to fall on their face and couldn't stand in the presence of God. You remember Paul, when he met Jesus on the Damascus Road, knocked him on his tuchus, blinded him because he couldn't stand before God. When John, in the book of Revelation, saw the glory of God, he fell on his feet, it says, as dead, because he couldn't stand in the presence of this God. That's how magnificent this God is. His holiness confronts us, and when it confronts us, the same thing should happen to us that happened to Isaiah. First thing out of his mouth is, woe to me, I'm lost, I'm a man of unclean lips, I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, because I've seen God. Just the fact that he saw the glory and the holiness of God makes him realize just how far separated he is from God.